Let's now cover the methods for defining your font sizes. The general consensus among web designers is that sizing text using em values, EM, is the best approach. Among other advantages to using em units to resize text is that it ensures compatibility with Internet Explorer 6, which cannot resize text defined with pixels. The em unit is a measurement equal to the size of the type you're using. So if within a given element the font size is set to 11 pixels, 1 em would be equal to 11 pixels. If the font size in another element is 30 pixels, 1 em unit in that element would be equal to 30 pixels, and so on. Thus, 1 em unit can have many different values within one style sheet. This is referred to as a relative measurement. As this example demonstrates, relative measurements have no specific fixed value. They're calculated in comparison to an inherited value. Other relative values besides em units are percentage, x height, and pixels. X height is referred to or written down as EX. You can see these relative pixel size measurements in this table right here. Percentage is a measurement as a percentage relative to another value. X is a measurement relative to a font's x height, determined by the height of the font's lowercase letter x. Here's the em unit that I referred to. This is a relative measurement for the height of a font in em spaces, and then px is a relative measurement in screen pixels. Relative measurements really come into their own for text sizing. They give the designer less absolute control but create a better experience for the end users. Now, although relative measurements are better used when formatting text, when it comes to learning CSS and its ways of working with text, I prefer to have my students start by using the pixel measurement, as you can see here in this example. Pixel measurements are easier to understand and apply. It also ensures that those students who cannot get their head around the concept of relative measurements and ems can still get their CSS design set up and working properly. Here in this example, a new declaration is added to the body to define the size of the text, in this case 12 pixels, by declaring font size, 12px, in combination with the font family declaration. I'm ensuring that all elements will be sized to 12 pixels, regardless of any inheritance issues. This is in stark contrast to the ems values, which are heavily or can be heavily influenced by cascading rules. There are exceptions to this blanket font size declaration, however. For example, headings, H1, H2, H3, and so on, will retain their default font sizes as declared by the browser style sheet unless you redefine them. Here I have an example of some body text that I've set up to be 24 pixels right here. And there's my body styling. Notice that my heading style 1 and 2 and 3 are unaffected by this body declaration. They're still obeying the default styles set up by the browser. I could also set up a style rule to redefine the size of my headings here, which are going to then be independent of my body text. In other words, just because you specify a size of 12 pixels or 24 pixels in the body does not mean that level 2 headings will also be 12 or 24 pixels, as the browser style sheet has its own correctly formatted CSS rules, such as H1 being font size 2ems or 3ems, and so on. When working with HTML-based text, the first thing you'll want to do is override the browser's default CSS properties. That's what you can see right here. There's no styling applied to this text, so what we're looking at is the typeface and font size default settings for the browser. Now remember that every element contained in the body element will inherit its values unless you specify otherwise, so this work of resetting the browser defaults should start by specifying some general styling rules for the body tag, which will be the topic of the next movie.